It was a quiet afternoon in a small, peaceful neighborhood. The streets were lined with tall trees whose leaves swayed gently in the warm breeze. Birds chirped softly, and the air smelled faintly of flowers from nearby gardens. Most people were inside enjoying the calm or taking a nap after lunch. But for one elderly woman, the day was just beginning. She had lived in this neighborhood for decades. She knew most of her neighbors, waved at them when they walked by, and sometimes shared stories of the past with anyone who would listen. Despite her age, she had a sharp mind and a kind heart. But she moved slowly, not because she was weak, but because arthritis made every step a little harder. Still, she faced each day with courage and determination. Her most loyal companion was Titan, a large, strong German shepherd. Titan had a past most dogs would not dream of. He had served as a police K9 for years, trained to track, protect, and respond to danger with speed and precision. Now retired, Titan was calmer, gentler, and loved nothing more than sitting near his owner, watching the world go by. But anyone who knew him, even just a little, knew that beneath his calm exterior was a dog who could react instantly if he sensed trouble. That afternoon, the woman stepped outside to check her mailbox. She had her small shopping bag in one hand, and Titan trotted calmly by her side. She hummed a soft tune, enjoying the sunlight and the quiet around her. Nothing seemed unusual. The street looked the same as it always did. Well-kept lawns, parked cars, a few children riding bikes further down. But appearances can be deceiving. Unbeknownst to her, 3 men had noticed her earlier that day. They had been loitering on a nearby corner, watching people come and go, looking for someone who seemed like an easy target. When they saw her walk slowly, struggling slightly with her bag and cane, they thought she would be perfect. They didn't know her. They didn't know her life. And they definitely didn't know Titan. The 3 men exchanged whispers and small laughs as they followed her from a distance. One of them said something that made the others chuckle, and they adjusted their pace to close in behind her. Confidence oozed from them, but it was the kind of confidence that comes from underestimating people and situations. They assumed that an elderly woman alone on the street was defenseless and scared. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. Titan, however, noticed the subtle tension in the air. Dogs can sense things humans often cannot. He stiffened slightly, ears perked, eyes scanning the approaching figures. He let out a low, careful growl, not loud enough to alarm the woman, but strong enough to signal that something was wrong. The woman felt the vibration of his growl through his body and paused. She looked at Titan, understanding immediately. "Stay calm," she whispered softly, placing a steady hand on his head. She wasn't afraid. She didn't panic. She had learned long ago that fear could make a bad situation worse. Instead, she prepared herself quietly, aware that she had a loyal protector at her side. Titan's presence gave her a sense of security she had rarely felt in recent years. The men were now closer, moving with what they thought was quiet determination. One of them stepped forward, a smirk on his face, and shouted, "Hey, old lady, hand over your bag. You won't need it where you're going." The woman's heart beat a little faster, but she didn't scream or run. She knew that sudden movements could provoke unpredictable reactions. She planted herself firmly on the sidewalk, holding her bag close to her body. Titan moved slightly in front of her, making it clear that any approach would have to go through him first. The attackers laughed at what they thought was her hesitation. They didn't see the years of training in Titan's eyes. They didn't notice the way his muscles tensed subtly, ready to act at a moment's notice. To them, he was just a dog. A big dog, yes, but a dog nonetheless. And in their arrogance, they assumed that even if he reacted, it would be easy to control. The woman spoke in a firm, calm voice, trying to diffuse the situation. "I don't want any trouble," she said. "Just leave and go your own way." But the men didn't listen. One of them stepped closer, reaching for her bag. In that instant, Titan acted. With speed and precision that only years of training could provide, he moved between the man and the woman. His growl grew louder, deep and commanding, sending a clear warning. The man froze for a moment, taken aback by the sheer intensity in the dog's stance. "Tighten back," the woman whispered softly, but the command was more about control than stopping him. Titan remained focused on the threat, eyes locked on the man, muscles coiled and ready. The other 2 men hesitated, unsure of what to do as they watched their plan unravel in an instant. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The street was quiet except for the low, threatening growl of the dog. The woman held her ground, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the fear starting to creep into the attackers' faces. Titan's presence alone was enough to make them reconsider, but their pride and recklessness pushed them to act anyway. One man lunged toward the woman, trying to grab the bag. Titan moved with perfect timing, blocking the attack and barking loudly, teeth visible, a display that made even the bravest person hesitate. The man stumbled backward, tripping over his own feet while Titan stood firm, guarding the woman like a wall of muscle and instinct. The other two men shouted, realizing that their plan was failing. They tried to intimidate Titan with gestures and words, but the dog was unmoved. His loyalty and training had prepared him for moments exactly like this. The woman watched, silently guiding him with her presence, proud of her companion yet aware that the danger was real. Neighbors began to notice the commotion. A few doors opened and curious eyes peeked out, seeing the unusual scene. The three men, suddenly aware that they were being watched, panicked. Titan's growls, the woman's firm stance, and the neighborhood's sudden attention combined to create an overwhelming force they hadn't anticipated. The man who had tried to grab the bag scrambled to get up, while the other two backed away slowly, unsure of how to escape without being caught. Titan followed, staying just close enough to maintain control but not causing unnecessary harm. His actions were precise, protective, and measured. The woman called out calmly, "Go on now, leave. You don't want this to get worse." Her voice carried authority and confidence, and for the first time, the men realized that they were dealing with more than just an elderly woman. They were dealing with someone who had strength, courage, and a loyal protector who would not hesitate to defend her. In those few moments, the attackers had a choice: flee or face consequences they hadn't expected. Fear finally overtook their arrogance. The men turned and ran down the street, stumbling over uneven pavement, their laughter replaced by panic. Titan followed them briefly, enough to ensure they were truly leaving, and then returned to his owner sitting calmly by her side. The woman breathed a sigh of relief. She patted Titan's head, whispering, "Thank you, my friend. You always know what to do." Titan wagged his tail gently, his eyes softening as he returned to his usual calm demeanor. The quiet of the neighborhood slowly returned, broken only by the soft sounds of birds and the rustling of leaves. Neighbors came out of their houses, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others approaching to check if she was all right. She reassured them, smiling warmly, though her heart was still racing. They marveled at Titan, realizing that the dog they had seen many times lounging in the yard was far more than he appeared. That day, the woman and her dog had faced danger, and together they had shown courage, loyalty, and the unexpected power that comes from years of training and deep trust. Titan wasn't just a pet, he was a hero, a guardian, and a friend who would never let harm come to the woman he loved and protected. Even as the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the street, she felt a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for her loyal companion, for her own strength, and for the fact that sometimes, even in a world that can seem cruel, courage and loyalty prevail. And as they walked back into the house together, Titan following closely, alert but calm, the neighborhood knew that they had witnessed something remarkable, a bond that went beyond age, fear, and danger. A bond that could not be broken, a partnership built on trust, love, and the quiet strength that only true heroes possess. The street was quiet again, but the tension lingered in the air. The elderly woman stood in her yard, clutching her bag a little tighter, while Titan remained close, alert, and ready. Her heart was still beating fast, but she felt calmer knowing that Titan had protected her. Yet she also knew that the men had not disappeared completely. The city streets were full of people, but not everyone paid attention. And the attackers, although driven away, might come back if they believed they had failed. The woman thought carefully. She could not stay outside forever, and she had work to do inside the house. But first, she had to make sure the area was safe. She called out softly, "Titan, stay close." The dog obeyed immediately, his body brushing against hers. They walked slowly back toward the front door, eyes scanning for any sign of trouble. Meanwhile, the three men were regrouping a few blocks away. They were frustrated and angry, not only because they had failed in their attempt, but because they had underestimated something so simple: a retired dog, loyal and trained, protecting an elderly woman. One of them slapped his hand against his forehead. "We can't just let her get away like that," he said, voice tense. "She's just an old lady. How could a dog scare us like that? His friends shook their heads, realizing they had made a mistake. They had not prepared for the unexpected. Their plan had been simple: find someone weak, take advantage of them, and leave. But life doesn't always follow a plan, especially when it comes to people who refuse to be victims. Back at the woman's house, she began preparing for the rest of the afternoon. She made sure all doors were locked and the windows secured. Titan moved around the house, sniffing at the doors and windows, ensuring everything was safe. She poured herself a cup of tea, sitting near the window, and watched the street. Her eyes were sharp, still alert to every movement. She knew her calm and patience were just as important as Titan's strength. Suddenly, a car drove slowly down the street, and her heart jumped. She watched as the vehicle passed, paying close attention to the faces inside. It wasn't the attackers, but her pulse reminded her that danger could appear anywhere. Titan sat beside her, ears moving toward the street, growling softly. Not aggressively, just a warning. She patted his head, whispering, "Good boy. I know you're watching." Later, as the sun began to dip lower, Titan and the woman stepped outside again, this time just to check her garden. She loved gardening and spent hours tending to flowers and vegetables. Titan stayed near the gate, still vigilant, ears flicking at every sound. The neighborhood had returned to its quiet calm, but she knew peace was sometimes temporary. That evening, as she was preparing dinner, the phone rang. She picked it up, and it was her neighbor, a young woman who lived down the street. "Are you okay?" the neighbor asked, voice full of concern. "I saw what happened earlier. That dog of yours. He's amazing." The elderly woman smiled softly, though she felt a mix of pride and lingering tension. "We're fine," she said calmly. "Titan always knows what to do. I'm grateful for him." She didn't need to exaggerate anything. The dog's actions spoke louder than any words ever could. After the call, she continued her evening routine, but she couldn't shake the thought of the attackers. People sometimes assume that elderly women are easy targets, but she had learned through life that strength can appear in many forms. Her strength came from experience, patience, and of course the loyal presence of Titan. That night she slept lightly. Titan lay at the foot of her bed, ears twitching occasionally at sounds outside. She trusted him completely, and his years of training made her feel secure even in moments when the world felt uncertain. Sleep was important, but vigilance was natural when danger had already touched your life. The next morning brought sunlight and the familiar sounds of the neighborhood waking up. Birds chirped and cars passed slowly by. She prepared breakfast while Titan moved through the house, checking every corner, alert but calm. The world seemed ordinary, but she knew ordinary could change quickly. As she stepped outside to water her plants, she noticed movement in the distance. 3 men were walking down the street, their pace too slow to be innocent. She froze, recognizing immediately that it was them. They were the same men who had tried to attack her yesterday. The blood drained from her face, but she remained composed. Titan's stance changed instantly, muscles tensing, growl low and threatening. The men noticed Titan and hesitated. "Is that a dog?" One of them muttered, unease creeping into his voice. They remembered the fear they had felt the day before. But frustration made them reckless. "It's just a dog," another whispered. "We can handle it. She's alone. Let's go." The woman didn't speak. She didn't need to. Titan's presence communicated more than words ever could. The dog's sharp eyes followed their every move, showing readiness to act if they got too close. The attackers exchanged nervous glances. Their confidence was slipping, replaced by doubt and fear. When they reached the woman's property line, Titan stepped forward slightly, ears up, teeth bared in a warning, but not aggressive enough to attack unless commanded. The men froze, realizing that the dog was not a simple pet. His training, his posture, and the way he watched every move sent a clear message. Any mistake would be costly. "Go home," the woman finally said, her voice steady but firm. "Leave before someone gets hurt." For a moment, no one moved. The attackers were trapped in their own indecision. They had underestimated her. They had underestimated Titan, and now they faced a choice: retreat and live to try again another day, or act recklessly and face consequences. The tension was thick, almost unbearable. Titan's growl grew louder, and the woman's calm, confident presence made it clear she was in control. The attackers finally turned, walking back slowly, muttering curses under their breath. One stumbled over a small stone, nearly falling, and Titan's low bark reminded them that they were not safe to linger. Once the men were out of sight, the woman sighed deeply. Titan approached, his head brushing against her side. She knelt to scratch behind his ears, whispering words of thanks and comfort. He wagged his tail gently, calm again, having done exactly what he was trained to do. Later that day, the woman shared what had happened with her neighbors. The neighborhood was in awe of Titan, realizing that even a retired dog could still be a hero. They praised her for her composure and bravery. She didn't boast. She simply explained how Titan had always been her protector, how their bond gave her strength, and how vigilance, patience, and calm could turn fear into safety. Even as the day ended, the story of the encounter spread quietly through the neighborhood. People talked about the courage of the woman, the loyalty of her dog, and the lesson that appearances could be deceiving. The attackers had assumed they could scare an elderly woman, but instead they had been met with courage and a powerful protector. The evening brought quiet once more. The woman and Titan settled near the window, watching the sun set behind the trees. Titan lay close to her, alert but relaxed. She felt gratitude in her heart, not just for his protection, but for the companionship, love, and unwavering loyalty he gave her every day. She understood something important. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it comes from those who seem the weakest. And sometimes it comes from a bond between a human and an animal that cannot be broken, even when danger appears in the most unexpected ways. By the end of the day, the woman knew she had faced danger with courage. She had learned that fear could be managed, that calm could guide action, and that true strength often comes from connection, love, and trust. Titan had shown her bravery in action, and together they had protected not only themselves but also the dignity and safety that comes from standing firm in the face of threat. The day ended quietly, but the lessons remained. The woman would never forget the fear she had felt, nor the relief that came from having Titan by her side. She knew that tomorrow might bring ordinary life or unexpected challenges, but she also knew she was ready. Ready because she was not alone, and because courage sometimes walks on four legs and listens to every command of loyalty and trust. And so, as night settled over the neighborhood, the woman and Titan rested. Outside, the world continued on, unaware of the quiet heroism that had just unfolded. But inside their home, a story of bravery, loyalty, and calm courage had taken root, one that would echo through the neighborhood in whispered admiration and a renewed sense of respect for both the elderly woman and her extraordinary dog. The morning after the confrontation, the neighborhood was quiet again, but the tension from the previous day still lingered. The elderly woman and Titan had spent the night in careful vigilance. Titan had slept at her side, alert even in rest, ears twitching at every sound outside. The woman knew that the three men who had tried to attack her were still out there somewhere. Their failure had angered them, and she suspected they might return if they thought they could catch her off guard. The woman began her day slowly, making breakfast and tending to the small garden in her yard. Titan followed her everywhere, moving quietly but with a presence that reminded her she was not alone. The dog's calm vigilance was a comfort, and the woman often smiled as she thought about how lucky she was to have him. Despite the danger of yesterday, she felt a strange sense of calm. Life could be unpredictable, but her bond with Titan gave her strength she hadn't realized she possessed. Suddenly, movement caught Titan's eye. He lifted his head, ears pricked, eyes scanning the street. The woman followed his gaze and saw the three men again, walking slowly down the sidewalk. They were clearly watching the house, their eyes hidden beneath the brims of their hats, whispering to each other. The woman's heart beat faster, but she remained composed. She had been through enough in her life to know that panic could make things worse. Titan moved closer to the woman, pressing his body against hers. She stroked his head, whispering words of reassurance. "It's okay, Titan. We can handle this." Titan growled lowly, a sound that was not just a warning, but a statement of readiness. The three men were underestimating him again, as they had the day before. They thought he was just a dog, but they were about to learn that he was much more than that. As the men approached, one of them stepped forward, attempting to act confident. "Old lady," he shouted, "we're coming for that bag. You can't hide from us forever." His voice was meant to intimidate, but it trembled slightly. Deep down, he remembered yesterday's encounter and how quickly Titan had reacted. The woman did not speak immediately. She knew that words could provoke or calm, depending on how they were used. Instead, she stood quietly, her eyes steady on the men, showing no fear. Titan's body moved slightly in front of her, a clear sign that he would not allow anyone to harm her. The attackers' steps faltered. They had planned to scare her, to make her an easy target, but now, confronted by both courage and instinct, they hesitated. One of the men tried to rush toward her, thinking he could grab the bag quickly. Titan reacted instantly, moving between the man and the woman with precision. The dog's growl deepened, warning not just of teeth but of the training and discipline behind them. The man stumbled backward, tripping over the uneven sidewalk, and realized just how dangerous the situation had become. The other two men froze, unsure whether to run or continue. Fear had started to creep into their actions. They had underestimated not just the dog but the woman as well. She was standing firm, calm and composed, a stark contrast to their panicked movements. Her quiet strength paired with Titan's readiness created an invisible barrier that they could not breach. The woman spoke at last, her voice steady and commanding. "Leave now. Go before things get worse. You don't want to find out what Titan can do." Her words were not a threat but a warning backed by action. Titan's growl intensified slightly, a reminder that he was ready to protect her without hesitation. The men glanced at each other, realizing that they were trapped by their own recklessness. Pride and arrogance had led them here, but now, survival instincts were taking over. One of the men tried to make a move, but Titan lunged just enough to intimidate. The man tripped over his own feet, landing hard on the pavement. The sound of his fall echoed down the quiet street, startling even the birds perched on nearby trees. He scrambled to get up, brushing dirt from his clothes, but his courage had drained away. The other two men, seeing their companion struggle, started to back off slowly. Neighbors, having watched the tension unfold, began to gather at a safe distance. They whispered to each other, astonished at what they were witnessing. The elderly woman, standing tall with Titan at her side, had managed to face danger head-on and maintain control. They could see the fear in the attacker's eyes, the disbelief at a plan that had completely failed. The three men finally decided to retreat. They turned and ran, muttering curses under their breath. Titan followed them for a few steps, just enough to make them hesitate, but not enough to cause harm. His goal was clear: protect the woman, not create unnecessary danger. Once he was sure they were leaving, he returned to her side, calm again, his job done for now. The woman exhaled slowly, feeling relief wash over her. She knelt to Titan, brushing his ears and whispering softly, "Thank you, my friend. You always know what to do." Titan leaned into her hand, his body relaxed, his tail wagging gently. He had performed perfectly, guided by years of training and the trust he shared with her. She took a moment to look around the neighborhood. The quiet street seemed safer now, but she knew that vigilance was still necessary. Life was unpredictable, and while today had ended well, tomorrow could bring new challenges. She felt a renewed sense of respect for her own strength and for the bond she shared with Titan. Together, they had faced real danger and come through unharmed. Later that afternoon, she called the police to report the attempted attack. She described the men, their movements, and the incident in detail. She also mentioned Titan, explaining his role in protecting her. The dispatcher took notes carefully, reassuring her that officers would patrol the area and take the situation seriously. She felt comforted by the knowledge that help was on the way if needed. Neighbors continued to check in on her, offering kind words and support. Children waved from their yards while adults nodded in acknowledgement of her courage. The woman thanked them politely but reminded herself that the real hero of the day was Titan. His loyalty, training, and instinct had made the difference between danger and safety. As evening approached, she reflected on the events. Life had taught her many lessons, and yesterday had reminded her of an important truth. Courage is not always about fighting or shouting. Sometimes it is quiet, calm, and steady. It is the ability to remain composed under pressure, to make careful decisions, and to rely on those you trust. Titan had embodied all of these qualities, and together, they had faced a situation that could have been much worse. The woman also thought about the attackers. She did not feel hatred, but she understood that recklessness and poor choices often lead to consequences. She hoped they would learn from their mistake, though she knew some lessons could only be taught by experience. That night she prepared for bed, Titan settling at her feet as usual. The moonlight cast gentle shadows across the room, and the soft ticking of a clock marked the quiet passage of time. She felt gratitude for her life, for the neighborhood, and for the extraordinary dog who had become not just a companion but a protector. Outside, the street was calm again. The world continued without knowing the events that had taken place, the danger that had been faced and the courage that had been displayed. But inside the woman's home, a bond stronger than fear and threat had been proven. Titan's loyalty and skill had saved her, and her calm courage had guided him. Together, they had turned a potentially devastating situation into a story of survival and trust. As she drifted into sleep, the woman knew that life would continue with its usual rhythms. Yet the events of the day had left a mark, not a mark of fear, but a mark of resilience, bravery, and partnership. Titan lay at her side, his body relaxed but his senses alert, ready for anything that might come next. The woman smiled softly in her sleep, knowing that with Titan she was never truly alone, and that courage often comes in the form of quiet, steadfast companionship. And so the day ended with peace restored. Yet the memory of danger and the lessons learned lingered. The woman and her dog had faced real threat and had emerged strong, their bond unshaken, their trust unbroken. The neighborhood, though unaware of the full story, had witnessed the courage of two unlikely heroes, one human, one canine, standing together in the face of danger, proving that bravery is not measured by size or age, but by loyalty, calm, and determination. The next morning, the elderly woman woke early as she always did. The sky was painted with soft shades of pink and orange, and the air smelled faintly of dew and blooming flowers. Titan was already awake, stretching his large body near her bed, ears alert to every sound. She smiled at him, grateful that he was by her side, ever watchful and loyal. After yesterday's events, she knew that Titan's presence was not just comforting, it was essential. She prepared breakfast quietly, aware that the world outside could still hold danger. She made sure the doors were locked and the windows secured, then poured herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the neighborhood slowly come to life. Children played on the sidewalks, neighbors walked their dogs, and the quiet hum of daily life returned. Yet in her mind, the events of the past 2 days replayed clearly. Not long after, she heard the familiar sound of police sirens approaching. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled up to her house. Officers stepped out, serious but polite, and made their way to her door. The woman opened it and welcomed them inside. She explained everything that had happened: the first attempted attack, the return of the men the following day, and Titan's crucial role in keeping her safe. She described the men, their appearance, and even small details about their movements, making sure the officers had a complete picture. The officers listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions to clarify the timeline. They were impressed by the woman's calm demeanor and clear recollection of events. "You did exactly what you should have," one officer said, smiling kindly. "And your dog. He's remarkable. Most dogs wouldn't act with such precision. It's clear he's trained." The woman nodded. "Titan is retired from police work," she explained. "He was trained for protection, tracking, and responding to danger. I've been lucky to have him with me." The officers exchanged a look of respect, realizing that Titan had truly been the hero of the situation. They asked if they could examine the area, and she agreed. Titan walked beside them, calm but alert, showing that he still understood the importance of his presence. They examined the yard, the street, and the surrounding area, noting the path the attackers had taken and discussing possible strategies for capturing them. Later, the officers left, promising to patrol the neighborhood and follow up on the suspects. The woman felt a mix of relief and gratitude. The danger had not vanished completely, but she knew that the authorities were now involved and would take her report seriously. Titan sat quietly by her side, his presence a reminder that she was never alone. Word of the incident spread quickly through the neighborhood. Neighbors came by offering support and admiration. Some had witnessed parts of the encounter from their windows, and they were astonished by Titan's calm courage and the woman's composed bravery. Children who had been playing nearby asked questions, curious and wide-eyed. Adults nodded in respect, acknowledging that the woman and her dog had handled a dangerous situation with skill and care. That afternoon, a local news crew arrived. They had heard about the unusual story, a retired police dog protecting an elderly woman from multiple attackers, and wanted to cover it. The woman hesitated at first, not used to attention, but she agreed when she realized it could serve a greater purpose. She wanted people to know that vigilance, courage, and training could make a difference no matter your age. The reporter filmed the woman and Titan in her yard. Titan sat proudly beside her, his head held high and eyes alert. The woman spoke softly but firmly, describing the events, emphasizing the importance of preparedness and sharing her appreciation for Titan. The camera captured every moment, highlighting the bond between them and the extraordinary role the dog had played. Later that day, the police called back. They had identified the 3 men from nearby surveillance cameras. The officers were planning to arrest them, and they wanted the woman to confirm details and provide statements for the investigation. She agreed, cooperating fully, knowing that her honesty could help prevent the men from harming anyone else. Titan followed her closely to the police station, calm but vigilant, as if understanding the importance of the moment. When she arrived at the station, the investigators were impressed. They could see that Titan was not an ordinary pet. His posture, his attentiveness, and the calm authority he exuded made it clear that he had been trained for serious work. Officers shared stories of canine units they had worked with, comparing Titan to them, and agreeing that his instincts and loyalty were exceptional. The woman smiled quietly, proud of her companion but careful not to boast. Titan had done his duty, and that was all that mattered. The police confirmed that the attackers had been caught the previous night in another part of town, thanks in part to the surveillance footage and the descriptions she had provided. The men were facing charges for attempted assault, and the officers assured her that the legal process would ensure they could not harm anyone else anytime soon. Relief washed over her. The threat had been removed and justice was beginning to take its course. Returning home, the woman reflected on the past few days. The world could be harsh and unpredictable, she thought, but courage and loyalty often made the difference between fear and safety. Titan had reminded her that training, experience, and calm determination were invaluable. Together, they had faced real danger and emerged victorious. She looked at Titan, brushing his ears and whispering softly, "We did it. Thank you for being my protector." Titan leaned into her touch, tail wagging gently, his eyes softening with trust and understanding. Over the next few days, neighbors continued to check in, offering meals, kind words, and small gestures of support. The woman appreciated their kindness but often reflected quietly with Titan, knowing that their shared experience had bonded them in a way that went beyond words. Titan was more than a pet. He was a guardian, a friend, and a hero who had proven his loyalty under real threat. The police also returned periodically, checking in to see how she was doing and ensuring that her report was accurate. The investigation moved steadily, and the woman felt reassured knowing that the men responsible were being held accountable. She also realized that her actions, remaining calm, observant, and composed, had been crucial in helping Titan protect her effectively. As the week progressed, the story gained more attention. Local newspapers and online platforms highlighted the bravery of the elderly woman and her retired police dog. People marveled at how a simple act of vigilance and trust between a human and her animal companion had prevented a potentially dangerous assault. The woman received letters and calls from strangers expressing admiration and gratitude, sharing that her story had inspired them to be more aware and to value the bonds in their own lives. Through it all, the woman remained humble. She knew that she had not acted alone. Titan had been her protector, her companion, and her guide through the danger. She often spent quiet moments with him, stroking his fur and whispering softly, "You are the bravest of all, Titan. I couldn't have done it without you." Titan responded with gentle nuzzles and soft growls of contentment, a silent conversation that only they could understand. As the investigation progressed, the woman reflected on the lessons she had learned. Courage is not always loud. It is sometimes quiet, steady, and measured. Strength is not always about size or age. It can come from wisdom, patience, and loyalty, and true partnership between a human and an animal or between people can make the impossible possible. Even as life began to return to normal, the woman remained vigilant. She continued her daily routines, tending to her garden, preparing meals, and walking through her neighborhood with Titan at her side. But there was a renewed sense of confidence in her steps. She had faced danger and survived, not through fear or force, but through calm determination, careful observation, and the unwavering loyalty of her companion. Titan, for his part, resumed his retired routine. He lounged in the yard, napped by the window, and followed the woman everywhere she went. But beneath the calm, the instincts of a trained canine remained. He knew that vigilance was part of his responsibility, and he remained ready to act if necessary. Their bond had grown stronger through the ordeal, a silent understanding that whatever came next, they would face it together. By the end of the week, the woman felt a sense of closure. The attackers were in custody, the neighborhood was reassured, and the story of their bravery had inspired others. She looked at Titan, seated proudly beside her, and realized that courage often comes in quiet moments, guided by loyalty and trust. Together they had turned fear into safety, threat into respect, and uncertainty into confidence. That evening, as the sun set behind the trees and the street was bathed in golden light, the woman and Titan sat together on the porch. She held his large head gently in her hands, looking into his eyes. "You're more than a dog, Titan. You're my protector, my friend, and my hero," she whispered. Titan nuzzled her hand, calm and steady, his eyes reflecting the same quiet understanding. And as night fell, the neighborhood was peaceful once more. The story of the woman and her retired police dog had reached many ears, spreading respect, admiration, and a reminder that courage often comes in unexpected forms. The woman had faced real danger and emerged strong, supported by the loyalty and skill of her extraordinary companion. Titan had shown the world that even a retired hero could rise to the occasion when needed most, proving that bravery is not measured by age or size but by trust, training, and unwavering loyalty. The neighborhood was calm once more, but for the elderly woman, the events of the past week remained vivid in her mind. The memory of the men who had tried to harm her and the way Titan had protected her was never far from her thoughts. Yet despite the fear and tension she had felt, there was also a deep sense of relief and gratitude. Titan had not only saved her life but had reminded her of the power of loyalty, training, and courage. That morning she began her day with her usual routine. She brewed a cup of tea, letting the aroma fill the kitchen, and watched the sunlight spill through the windows. Titan sat nearby, alert but calm, occasionally glancing out the window as if to make sure the street remained peaceful. The bond between them had grown even stronger after the recent events, each relying on the other in a silent understanding that words could not capture. The woman decided to take a short walk around the neighborhood, Titan following faithfully by her side. People were outside, tending to gardens, walking dogs, and going about their daily lives. Many waved at her, offering smiles and kind words. Some approached to ask how she was feeling. Genuinely concerned and curious about how she had handled the situation, she answered politely, careful to remain composed while acknowledging Titan's bravery. "He's remarkable," she would say softly, patting his head. "I am lucky to have him." As they walked, the neighbors shared stories of their own fears and experiences. Some had considered moving to another area, worried about safety, but seeing the woman's courage and Titan's protection reminded them that community and vigilance were just as important as caution. Children ran past them laughing, and one young girl stopped to pet Titan, eyes wide with admiration. The woman smiled, grateful for the reminder that life could still be joyful, even after frightening experiences. Back at home, she prepared a small celebration for Titan. She had bought special treats and a new chew toy, wanting to reward him for his bravery. Titan approached cautiously at first, sniffing the treats with curiosity before accepting them eagerly. The woman laughed softly, enjoying the simple joy of the moment. In Titan's eyes there was pride, calm confidence, and the same unwavering loyalty he had shown during the dangerous encounters. Later that day, she received a call from the local police department. The 3 men who had tried to attack her had been officially charged with attempted assault and other related crimes. The woman felt a sense of closure, knowing that justice would be served.